Hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome to this lecture where you're going to supercharge your understanding of variables to a whole new level. After getting an introduction to variables in the last lecture, we're now going to go ahead and use them in a real example. Make sure to follow along for maximum learning. In this lecture, we're going to make our previous code a lot more organized by using variables. In this way, you get to see a before and after example to really understand why variables are so useful and why using them is much better than what we've been doing before. Let's go! Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is boot up idle, and once you've done that, head over to the File tab and click Open. Now, if you've made a file directory like mine, it's going to be on the desktop, so I'm going to browse there, Desktop Python Bible, and here we are, meetingidle.py. So if I double click on that, well, hey, there we are. That's the code that we made a few lectures ago. So let me just maximize that. So let's run it again to get an idea of what this script does. As we can see, the script prints out the number 2 and the number 115. This is all good, but what if we wanted to keep those numbers for later? Well, for this, we're going to need variables. Remember, variables are like boxes, so we can put the value inside the box and keep it for later. Let's say we wanted to call our first number the imaginary name of first number. The way we would do that is we'd get rid of this whole print function here, and we'd type first number with an underscore, then equals 1 plus 1. So what's going on here? Well, in the middle, we have our assignment operator, the equals sign. On the left-hand side, we have our variable name, which is first number, and on the right, we have 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is what is called a Python expression. Python is going to evaluate the expression, basically find out what it is, and then store the result in the box called first number. What this means in plain English is that Python will do the calculation on the right and get the answer 2. Then it will store the answer 2 inside the box called first number, or inside the variable called first number. We can then use the variable name to refer to this value at any point in the future. So what we can do is instead of print 1 plus 1, we can just use print first number. Here, Python will look inside the box called first number and find the number 2. And it will then print the number 2 to the screen. So you can see we get exactly the same answer as when we just printed the answer directly, but by using variables this time. We can do this for the second value, and let's call that the equally imaginative name of second number. So what we do, we get rid of our print function and type second number equals 105 plus 10, making sure to get rid of that trailing bracket there. So Python is going to evaluate the expression on the right-hand side and get the result of 115. The value of 115 will be stored in the box called second number. And now when we use the print function, but put second number inside it, Python is going to see what's inside second number, it's going to see the number 115, and print that out to the screen. We see exactly what we saw last time, it works just as expected, and both numbers are printed on the screen just like before. If you got exactly the same as me by following along, then well done, you're basically becoming a boss at using variables. I just want to make a note here about naming variables. Sometimes variables have long names, and they contain multiple words like ours do. There are multiple common ways to name variables in programming. For example, there's camel case, which looks like this, or there's another type of camel case, which is like this. However, the most common way to name variables in Python that have multiple words in them is just to add an underscore in between each word, like we've done here. There mustn't be a space in your variable name, so we can use the underscore instead. It's common for a variable to be all lowercase in Python, so we'll use that style going forward in the course. Having a common style for naming variables isn't required, but it makes your code a whole lot easier to use, and a lot easier to read as well, and it stops you making as many errors. Oh, one other thing I should mention is that variable names can't start with a number. For example, I can't create a variable like this, but I can type this, because this starts with the letter A instead of the number 1. This is just something to bear in mind as you name your variables. Just make sure they always start with a letter. Now, with that out of the way, what makes using variables any better than just typing out the value? I mean, our program works just the same as before, right? Why bother making variables? Well, imagine if we wanted to do some calculations and add the answers together. We might make a variable called total and set that equal to the first number plus the second number. Now when we print total, what we're going to see is 117 come up, because 117 is 2 plus 115. So what happened here? Well, let's break it down step by step, although it may very well be apparent by now. Python sees that it needs to evaluate the expression on the right-hand side of the assignment operator here and put the answer inside the box called total. The first thing Python sees is the variable called firstNumber. Python looks inside that box and sees the number 2 inside. And next, Python sees that it needs to add whatever's in the box called secondNumber. Python looks inside the box called secondNumber and sees the number 115. So now Python knows it needs to add together 2 and 115. It does so and comes up with the answer 117. 117 is then stored in the box called total. And finally, when we use the print function, Python looks inside total, sees 117, and prints that to the screen. So that's what's going on pretty much in the entire program. So as you can see, by creating variables to store important information, we can make our information much more reusable and easily findable because we can give it very convenient names. Also, look at how much easier it is to change our code. If we wanted to add 5 to the first number, we can do that. And when we run our script, we see that not only the first number changes, but so does total. By using variables in this way, we can actually, by just changing 1 or 2 lines of code, create massive changes all the way through the rest of our program. Now, everyone loves a shortcut. So there we have it. We've learned all about variables and used them in a practical example to add together a couple of numbers. Nice and easy, right? We also went over some naming techniques which you can use to name your variables in Python to keep them nice and readable. Just make sure to start with a letter, keep them all lowercase, and if there's a space, replace the space with an underscore. We also discussed in laborious detail, but very useful now that we've got the basics down, about how Python evaluates expressions and then stores the result in a variable. Finally, you saw how variables can make our code much more organized, much easier to find the data we want, and also a lot easier to change and edit later with powerful effect. Told you variables were pretty great, right? Now, because variables are such an important topic and pretty much everything else is built upon them, up next we have a quiz to check your understanding, and then you have a coding challenge to check that you've really grasped the concepts and let you try them out for yourself. Now don't worry, it's nothing too scary, but by giving you repeated opportunities to review and practice the concepts that are taught in the course, you're going to get an excellent understanding of them and learn them much deeper, so you'll be doing it in your sleep. Now this is all part of the magic of the project-based learning that you get with the course. So I wish you the best of luck with the quiz and challenge, and I'll see you for a quick recap in the section review.